Hi, this is Tisch, Aitken. Happy new moon. It is a new moon in Cancer that occurred this morning, June 25th at 6:31 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 4 degrees and 7 minutes of the Cardinal water sign of Cancer. And there are some challenges around this month, and we just had the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, and there's certainly inherent problems and challenges in that chart which will unfold in the next 6 months until the next solstice. But there's a lot of magic ahead in challenging times, and this is a very abundant, fertile, and magical new moon in Cancer. The moon rules the sign of Cancer, and we have an annual new moon in Cancer every summer. And in this case, this new moon is conjunct Jupiter. Jupiter takes 12 years to orbit approximately, and it ingressed into the sign of Cancer on June 9th, where it will be through June 30th of next year. Jupiter is in its exaltation in the sign of Cancer. This is about nourishment, and this is about taking care of yourself. This is about listening to the heart as much as you're, with Jupiter in Gemini, it was very much expanding a lot of thoughts and information, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury, so you can come up with a lot of things, but it can be very distracting, and it's a mutable sign where you can go in many different directions. And Jupiter happens to be in its detriment in Gemini, where now it's in its exaltation where it loves to be. And this new moon occurs at 4 degrees and 7 minutes of the sign of Cancer. And Jupiter is currently at 3.5 degrees of Cancer. So they're, less than a degree apart. So that's very positive. And the Sun in Cancer met up with Jupiter yesterday at 11:17 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That brings optimism in a very challenging world and a very challenging time. We are in uncharted times. We have to bear in mind that even this new moon chart, as magical as it is, also shows the challenges that we're facing and experiencing as we work in a new paradigm, the new age of Aquarius. There are many planets in new signs, and that trend will continue even further next year because Saturn, Neptune, and soon Uranus are all in new signs where they're dipping for a few months, then they go back to the sign they're in, and then next year Saturn and Neptune will return to Pisces. They're currently in the sign of Aries. Cardinal fire, the sign of new beginnings and launching new things. They're not done with wrapping up the story in Pisces, which is about spiritual wisdom. It's about release and letting go. And segueing to this new story in Aries, this is about creating a whole new beginning. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac wheel, and it's a sign of identity, new beginnings, and initiation. Cardinal signs launch things and they make things happen. And we had Saturn enter the sign of Aries on May 24th. It happens to be in its fall position as it's exalted in the opposite sign of Libra, so it doesn't love being in Aries. But I find that people that have it, and even when I find people experiencing Saturn transiting in their first house. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. The first house mirrors Aries themes. I always say to them, really work hard to commit to what you're building, because this could have long-term effects or lifelong effects depending on what it is. Saturn is about building and constructing. It's about taking responsibility. It's acknowledging what's not working, so you work harder in that area. And with Saturn in Aries, it may make you more cognizant of where you feel you're lacking, where you feel the limitations are. And that is not easy, but Neptune is informing this journey. Saturn takes approximately 29 years to orbit. Neptune takes 165. The last round that Neptune was in Aries was April of 1996 through the end of February of 99. So at that time, Neptune definitely was not in Aries. This time, they're traveling very closely together, and 0 degrees of the cardinal signs is known as the world point. And those signs are Cancer, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. We have Saturn and Neptune. Neptune, which takes longer to transit, ingressed into Aries on March 30th, right after we had the eclipses, and it will be there through October 22nd. Saturn entered on May 24th. It will remain this year through September 1st. Saturn returns on February 13th of next year, and it will remain there through 2026, through April of 2026. And Neptune is returning on January 26th of next year and will be there for several years. So this is, though, where we're building a whole new dream in a new sign, and it's very rare that Saturn and Neptune are in the same sign. And although Saturn in Aries feels challenging, it kind of shows you what you're made of and says, look, you've got to fight, you have no choices. We're in a very uncharted world with a lot of anger, a lot of warlike energy, obviously, a lot of war. We've got 4 points transiting in the cardinal fire sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars. Mars is the god of war. Mars is the battle, and Pluto is the war, but still, Mars does represent war, and Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. And the two clashed in the sky. Mars and Pluto opposed one another 3 times, beginning on November 3rd of last year, right before Pluto returned to the sign of Aquarius, where it is for the next 19 years. Mars was at 29 degrees of Cancer, and Pluto was at 29 degrees of Capricorn. They had a standoff or an opposition on November 3rd, which was 2 days before the United States presidential election. Then the two opposed one another a second time while in Leo and Aquarius, and this happened on January 3rd. That was 3 days before the fires broke out in Los Angeles, and that was like a war zone. And also that was the month of the inauguration in the United States. And the two opposed each other a third and final time on April 26th. And we had Mars retrograde this year. We began the year with Mars retrograde, and Mars rules the sign of Aries, so a very held back energy. We had the eclipses still in the Aries-Libra axis, garnering a lot of changes for those signs and for those areas of our chart. All of us, whether or not we have Aries or Libra in our charts, have a house. And, there are 12 houses in the chart. There's some sector in your chart that represents the Aries and Libra themes, and that's where the eclipses were hitting. And now all of these points in Aries, that's where that's building a new dream for you. And Jupiter in Cancer is very abundant, it's resplendent, it's gorgeous. I love Jupiter in Cancer. It's like your dream vacation home. It's your home away from home. Maybe every summer you go to a lake house and it is your home away from home and you feel very comfortable there. Maybe it's a vacation spot, but it's a place where you're focusing on self-nourishment and nurturing, taking a bubble bath, doing a face mask, talking to friends and hanging out in the backyard and having lemonade and listening to great music that brings up old memories, nostalgia. Cancer can be a very reminiscent sign. And Mercury, which is the planet of thinking and perspective, is in the sign of Cancer through tomorrow, through June 26th. And it recently clashed with Chiron, the wounded healer, which is still transiting in the Cardinal fire sign of Aries. Mercury clashing with Chiron brings up the wounds so that you can heal, so that you can have confidence. Chiron is in Aries saying, yes, there's a lot of vulnerability, not unlike Saturn in Aries, that makes you very conscious of where you fall short, at least the way you feel you fall short. And in some cases, it's a reality of what you do need to improve, whether it's in your relationships, your habits, your work ethic, your spending, your saving, living. Are you living enough? Many of us really aren't living that much. For a while we've become more isolated, and yet we're really co-creating together. As much as Aries is a sign of self, you have to view this as we're dealing with Pluto and Aquarius, which is about the universe ascending together. This is about change with community on a global level. We've got Saturn and Neptune working at the world point. They are going to come together next February at 0 degrees and 45 minutes of Aries. That's just 45 minutes off from the world, the global point, hitting the world in its entirety, and every one of us, whether or not we're famous or on the world stage, it impacts big monumental changes. So Neptune is the planet of imagination and creativity and the subconscious mind. And there's a lot of fear, that would be the lower vibration, and there are a lot of reasons to feel fearful. We've had Jupiter, the luckiest planet, ingress into Cancer where it loves to be. That happened on June 9th. 6 days later, it clashed a third and final time with Saturn, the planet of restrictions and limitations, which is currently at the world point or by the world point, saying, people in authority holding you back from trying to expand your freedom, Jupiter. External setbacks with work or with the world at large, or your financial circumstances, whatever you feeling like I can't do it. Then Jupiter expanded with Neptune. That could expand the mass hysteria. It could expand the confusion and deception. But Jupiter and Neptune are both the rulers of Pisces, which are so very creative, compassionate, and on the higher vibration. Neptune represents to me the higher octave of Venus. It's selfless, compassionate love. And so what's interesting is that Jupiter squaring Saturn defaults back to when Jupiter converged with Saturn. They meet up every 20 years and form what's known as a great conjunction. And they met up on the winter solstice on December 20th of 2020 at 0 degrees and 38 minutes of the fixed air sign of Aquarius. This ushered in a major new beginning. For the next 200 years, Jupiter and Saturn meet up in air signs, and this is the first time in 800 years that they had met up in an air sign. It also sets a vision, and it establishes a vision for the next 20 years through 2040. The last time they had met up was on May 28th of 2000 at 23 degrees of the fixed earth sign of Taurus. So at that point they were meeting up in earth. Now it's in air. And this is about infinite intellectual possibility. We have in the new moon chart, so that sets off, and then Jupiter squaring Neptune. Well, the two met up on April 12th of 2022 at 23 degrees of Pisces. That's a very manifesting energy. It's eliminating things and dissolving things that aren't working, as is Saturn, Neptune. But it's also saying it's pushing you to dream harder. I've noticed since all these planets have transitioned into Aries, including Neptune, I'm manifesting more diligently than I was when it was in Pisces, even though Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. I'm taking cardinal action to be more creative, to write more. I'm conscious of the fact that Saturn and Neptune will only be in the action-oriented sign of Aries for a few months longer. Saturn leaves on September 1st. It returns on February 13th of next year. Neptune leaves on October 22nd and returns on January 26th of next year. And then again, the two meet up on February 20th. So I'm taking steps in every way I can, but I'm also listening to my body when I need rest. Yesterday I wanted to do a video. I did a big article instead because, again, in line with this new story, Saturn and Neptune in a new cardinal action-oriented sign, a sign of initiation and new beginnings. What dream do I want to form? Well, I want to do more with writing and being creative in that way. Jupiter, exalted, abundant, fertile, and hopeful in the sign of Cancer. It had some challenges saying, you got to fight hard to magnetize what you want, baby. You got to do it, and I want to do it. I'm not going to give up in a really sad world. And Jupiter is in Cancer where it loves to be. And although it's made challenging aspects, what do we expect? It's not like the world is all, paths led by flowers, shrouded in flowers. We have to get through very challenging circumstances. And Saturn in Aries is not easy. But next month, and this is pretty soon, Uranus, which is the modern ruler of Aquarius, is going to change signs and enter the mutable air sign of Gemini. And that's going to be incredibly exciting for new possibilities to learn, to conduct business if your business is staggering or about to, go out of business. Or maybe you just want to expand. This is new ways to learn. The travel business has gotten hit on a local and global level. Local business, I hate to say it, local travel sucks. Taking buses, right now I had a 2-hour wait. My friend had a 45-minute wait and another 30-minute. That's in the last couple of weeks. That's unacceptable. And nobody apologizes. That's another thing with the alienation. No accountability. That's not good. I understand things are tough for all of us, and we have to be flexible. It's a very unpredictable world. The same with air travel. We don't need to get into that. But Uranus and Gemini is more about local travel, and Uranus rules aviation. I think there are going to be faster ways to travel. Not like the Concorde, but you might be able to go, a distance that might be 5 hours. They might find a way for you to do it in 3 or 2.5, in an easier, less expensive way. Going to New York to LA for 3 hours, that would be awesome. So who knows? Things like that, I think, will come into effect. And also a lot about anti-aging medicine, because Gemini is such a youthful sign and Uranus is about invention. And I just think things to be, and connecting. There's going to be a lot more focus on how intellectually we do need to come together. There are quite a few articles. Something came up recently in my feed, because I've been in so many directions, about how, because I live in America, I'm not just focusing on America, but how Americans are becoming more and more alienated as a nation, and this is obviously having a effect in so many different areas of life. And this is something that's not healthy for the brain, especially when you're young, when your brain is still forming. It doesn't stop till you're 25. But even for older adults, it's not healthy. It's not good for social skills. It's not good for tolerance. And it's okay to work remotely. That's the world we're in. Pluto's in Aquarius for 19 more years. We have much more development, but we need to come together. The last thing I want to say is there are areas of discomfort in this new moon chart, and that's okay. Cancer is a very emotional sign. It's in tune with its emotions. It's okay to feel sensitive or sad. Mercury squaring Chiron was definitely a vulnerable feeling. And we have 2 Yods, so that's a rare aspect, and we have 2 of them. So we've got the new moon in Cancer in its rulership where it loves to be. This is the last time the new moon's meeting up with Jupiter for a long time, for a while. But we've got the new moon at 4 degrees and 7 minutes of Cancer. Jupiter is at 3.5 degrees of Cancer. So they're both conjunct, bringing lots of possibility. I really want you to journal your intentions and manifest with this new moon. They form what's known as a sextile. That's when 2 points or planets are 60 degrees apart. That's an aspect of opportunity. Mars is in an earth sign. It's at 4.5 degrees of Virgo. So the new moon and Jupiter are both sextiling Mars and Virgo. That's good for getting work accomplished. Mars sextiling Jupiter. They had an exact aspect on the 22nd, but still, that's a good energy, and that's helpful. But both the new moon and Jupiter, they form a quincunx. That's when they are 150 degrees from a 3rd point. In this case, it's Pluto and Aquarius. And Mars is also at 4.5 degrees of the earth sign of Virgo. It is in conjunct, it forms a quincunx to Pluto and Aquarius, which is at 3 degrees and 35 minutes of the fixed air sign of Aquarius. So there's a readjustment, and those are both the rulers of Scorpio. Mars is working in harmony, but it's in conjunct Pluto. The new moon is very abundant, but it's in conjunct Pluto. There's a readjustment needed to how we can evolve in a whole new paradigm with Pluto in Aquarius. And the second Yod involves Saturn and Neptune forming a new dream. There, Saturn is now, I believe, at 1 degree and 40 minutes of Aries, and Neptune is about 2 degrees and 9 minutes of Aries as well. They're still traveling very closely together all summer. They're both retrograding in July, so they're slowing down, but we got all planets direct except for Pluto right now, and we're building a new dream. Micro and macro steps, and you better manifest like no tomorrow. Today. Or tomorrow if you can't do it today, but I want you manifesting. And so we've got Pluto in harmony with Saturn and Neptune, but both of those points, they're forming a 60-degree angle, but both of those points, the Aries points and the Aquarius, are in conjunct Mars and Virgo. So how you're getting things done. And again, Mars is one of the rulers of Scorpio. How do we transform and transcend in such obstacles? And you know, with this new moon, there is a lot of possibility. And later in the summer, Uranus, when it's in Gemini, is going to trine Pluto, which is going to be so inventive and futuristic. And they're going to work in harmony with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, facilitating your really creating a new dream. Things are tough. The solstice reflected that, that's for certain. The sun squared Saturn right after the solstice. The sun squared Neptune. Things can seem bleak, blocked, impossible, but there is a lot of magic. Work with it and do not give up on your dreams. I wish you a lot of luck and thank you. And again, Mercury is going to be forming an excellent aspect to Uranus tomorrow on the 25th. That's very innovative. And then Mercury changes signs and enters the fixed fire sign of Leo. It's moving quickly. It will retrograde next month, and we'll get to that later. Take care.